Hello.
So, very good evening to all of you. Today we will continue from our last part of Unit 8 for Paper 1, which is about research method in anthropology. And we were dealing with certain research techniques in last class. And we are left with a few. So, like we have covered interview, we have covered interview schedules, we have covered questionnaire, okay, and we have covered fieldwork tradition in anthropology. Today we will move forward and understand about observation, life history, oral history, okay, case study methods, and we'll also look upon certain sampling techniques and also data interpretation and analysis. So from all these methods which we will be dealing today, your observation is the most important one, followed by the case study method.
Hello.
So, very good evening to all of you. Today we will continue from our last part of Unit 8 for Paper 1, which is about research method in anthropology. And we were dealing with certain research techniques in last class. And we are left with a few. So, like we have covered interview, we have covered interview schedules, we have covered questionnaire, okay, and we have covered fieldwork tradition in anthropology. Today we will move forward and understand about observation, life history, oral history, okay, case study methods, and we'll also look upon certain sampling techniques and also data interpretation and analysis. So from all these methods which we will be dealing today, your observation is the most important one, followed by the case study method, okay. So let's begin with observation. You see, in anthropology, it is said that everybody sees but not everybody observes. This is the fundamental philosophy of observing. Everybody sees but not everybody observes. You have to be trained in observation, okay. To be trained in observation, anthropology is one discipline which provides you with a set of techniques that how to observe certain things around you, okay. Because fieldwork, as we know, is the hallmark of anthropology. Write this sentence down: fieldwork is the hallmark of anthropology, okay. And when we do fieldwork, observation is our best friend, okay. Observation is our best friend. And observation, apart from being a technique, it is a skill in itself, okay. Some people are good observers, some are moderate, and some are bad observers. So depending upon individual skills, individual way, as I told you, like when we were discussing fieldwork tradition and I was talking about basic tenets of fieldwork, there was one tenet about genius syndrome. Remember? Anyone? The genius syndrome I talked about. What was that? Only geniuses can do fieldwork. There was this perception in the initial days of field work and conducting ethnographies. So that jinx of that genius syndrome, it eventually got broken up. Okay, when people started working in their own communities, because when you are working in your own community, you have much more refined understanding compared to people you will go and study abroad or to some other place. So observation, as we know, Srivastava, he defines observation as systematic viewing. Systematic viewing which is intentional and is planned. Okay, something you are seeing intentionally and planned means whatever you are viewing things around you. Suppose if I am teaching you, if I am observing you, that means I will observe how do you communicate with me through space, that what is the distance between you and me is there. How do you communicate through your what? Through your body language with me. Okay, so that is intentionally I am trying to understand how do you situate yourself in this classroom. Okay, and it can be defined as precise viewing and recording of phenomena as occurring in nature. Whatever is occurring around you, you have to record it systematically, scientifically, and within a context. When we talk about writing thick description in ethnography, we say that whatever is happening, whatever social action is happening, we have to provide it a context. Without context, observation will mean nothing. If I start observing you without even having a scope of inquiry with me, it will make no sense. The data will just be lying apart like this only. Okay, so here when we are observing, the one thing which stands out is interactions and interpersonal relationship between two or more individuals in a scientific, systematic, and contextual manner. So these three things are important. That observation is scientific in nature, it is systematic, and it is contextual. Okay, these three things are important in your observation. It is of three kinds: participant observation, non-participant observation, and quasi-participant observation. Okay. In field work, initially participant observation was one which was quite prevalent, but every method, every technique has its own pros and cons. So to cover up those cons, nowadays we more focus on quasi-participant observation. Okay, and we'll deal with each of them now in detail. So let's begin with participant observation. So it was first, sir, can you please repeat? Class not streaming. Abhinav, like which part did you miss out? कैसे हो जाता है? I've just started. I've just talked about observation and its definition. So you see, we were talking about observation, and this we are doing this this module, research method in anthropology, unit 8, paper 1, and this is the second part of the class. And these are the research techniques which we are covering, research methods. So we are dealing with observation, and observation is basically your intentional viewing or intentionally planned execution of your research inquiry, and it can be defined as precise viewing and recording of phenomena as occurring in nature. So whatever is happening around you, you are trying to observe that in a scientific, systematic, and contextual manner. So that's what observation means. So it's a very it is your purposeful viewing of your social surrounding. Okay, that's what observation is. It is of three types: participant observation, non-participant, and quasi-participant. In earlier anthropological research, participant observation was quite prevalent, but with its pros and cons coming into forefront, we now more focus on quasi-participant observation, and we will deal with each of them now. So it was first used by Edward Linderman in his publication called Social Dictionary, okay, 1924. So this statement by Malinowski, it will sum up what participant observation actually means. That one has to cut oneself from company of other white men. Point number one, that you have to cut off yourself from the place where you have been living. So you have to go to a different place to conduct field work. Malinowski went to Trobriand Islanders. Okay, Margaret Mead, she went to Samoa. Okay, all of that places you know. Remaining close contact with the natives. The people you are studying, the place you have gone to, you stay closer to them. Like Malinowski, he pitched his tent among the village. He stayed with those people as possible, which really can only be achieved by camping right in their villages, which Malinowski did. So you go outside your own social domain, own social world, in a different social world, in a tribe, in a village, it can be anywhere. So this was something when Malinowski wrote in 1920s, Probe and Islanders, Argonauts of the Western Pacific. So two things are important here. You have to cut off from the company in which you are living, cut off from your own socializing world, situate yourself in a different setting, social setting, remain in close contact with people you are trying to study. Remain as close as possible with them. It is one in which researcher participates actively with group under consideration. So what happens in participant observation is, you go to a place, you go to a tribe, you go to an indigenous community, you stay with them. Number one, you participate in their daily activities. If they are, taking their cattle to, for example, forest, you will also move along with them. If they are doing pottery, you will learn how to make pottery with them. But the condition is that you will not disturb the imponderability of their daily life. Malinowski says there is something called imponderability of everyday life, which means daily activities you perform in your everyday life. So do not disturb that imponderability of daily life, rather than participate in that, learn from people, learn an amic perspective, and produce an ethnographic text of culture in question. Okay. The researcher in some cases may conceal one's identity. That is called your total participant observation. What happens is, at times you got so much assimilated into the community that you forget the part that you are an anthropologist, you are working with that community. You get so much dissolved into that community that you see, when you went there, you have your identity of own. Identity is a phenomena which is very flexible. It is very fluid in nature, as we know. It evolves across your lifespan. But at times what happens is, you get so much involved with the community that you forget that you have a purpose of studying them. So the detachment of observation, it goes away. Now what you have a very intricate understanding of that place. But the process of detachment, which will provide you data, it gets lost in that. Okay, there have been many cases in anthropology where anthropologists went, they even married the people of the tribe. Okay, completely lost their subjectivity in that process. There have been cases where people who have married in there was this case where an anthropologist was adopted by a family. It was this case in India itself, when they came to fieldwork in India. So there have been these cases when you completely get assimilated with that. So that is participant observation all about. Part of social events, whatever is happening around you, just for observing lives and participates in everyday life of group as a full-fledged member. Okay, so you are living the way you live in your family, you live with that community like that only, a full-fledged member of that community, just like Malinowski lived. Okay, ensuring that normal life of group is not disturbed. I have told you that imponderability of everyday life, it should not be disrupted with what you are doing, because in initial days you will be poking to every individual in the field, that what is that, what is this. Okay, so you will be somehow disturbing them. That happens in field, but that should not be the case. Select an appropriate time, take appointments with them, develop your rapport, then be a member of them, be one of them, because the ultimate aim of ethnography or participant observation is to provide you something called I was their experience. I was their experience. Okay, so observe the behavior of members of community, tries to understand interaction and relationship between them. That's a very fundamental assumption of doing field work. Researcher carries out holistic study of social group or unit. So when you are situating yourself within a community, when you understand what their thinking process is, when you understand how they live, what is the interrelation between different individuals, what is the process of communication between individuals, then you can bring out different aspect of that society, because now you are a member of that place. Only after being a member of, for example, say cricket team, you will be able to identify what kind of all-rounders we need, what kind of bowlers we need, batsmen we need, what kind of strategies do we need. Similarly, that is the case here. Okay, so you bring out a holistic perspective, and in initial ethnographies, if you look upon, Beat Malinowski, Mead, Raymond Firth, Evans Pritchard, Franz Boas, all of them, they tried to cover up as much as, societal data about religion, kinship, family, marriage, politics, everything. They were trying to provide you a snapshot of that culture as it was. Okay. So in this technique, events are interpreted through single observer's eyes. Therefore, problems of bias and reactivity, they emerge. So what happens is, it is you who is observing things, and you have your own inherent biases, which has been ingrained into you through your socialization process. And that's a very normal phenomena. If you go to some other place, the ethnocentric bias will be there. Some biasness will be there. You will always feel that this is not according to my culture, my society. You will feel that. So that problem of bias will be there, and you might react to certain processes, which you will find very exotic, which you can find very offensive in nature. Okay, so there is only a single observer perspective, which we will finding in participant observation. Okay, so this is about participant observation, when you completely situate yourself into the community's lifestyle, the community's social world. You become a part of the social reality which they create. You become a part of knowledge process of that community. Okay, so participant observation, it was initially very much famous in anthropology, when people used to go and study, different cultures and societies, those exotic societies. Second is your non-participant observation. So here, what happens is, the observer, they do not participate in the social activities as they were being participating in the participant observation time. They are completely detached. They are completely detached from the community activities. Okay, they are an outsider basically. So seeing something, for example, just let me give you an example. You want to observe a cricket match, or you want to, so to observe that cricket match, do you want to see, is it the case that you have to sit on the pitch itself? No. You can sit in the stands and still observe that match, that how an individual runs, what is the fitness level of the cricketers. You can clearly see that. You are not a part of that game, but still you are observing it. That's what we do in non-participant observation. Okay, that is why they are saying, does not actively participate in activities of the group, observe the social unit as an outsider, observe the activities under study from distance without getting directly involved. Okay, so you go to a temple, you go to your religious places, whenever the priest is praying, do you interrupt that priest? You just observe that, what the people are doing, and in synchronizing behavior, you perform your activities. From an outsider's perspective, you're seeing that, you're observing that. Okay, researcher is detached. The important point here is about detachment, does not experience life of people under study. Here, the social reality which is being constructed, you are not a part of that. You cannot experience that, because you are not a part of that intrinsic social lifestyle. You are detached from that. The researcher records observation and data as an outsider, as I have told you. Okay. Identity of the observer, it can be hidden or it can be revealed. Okay, as per the circumstances. However, non-participant observer remains totally passive and detached from the group under study. So it depends whether upon the condition, you can reveal your identity or you can conceal it. It's up to you upon the prevailing situations. Okay, so the advantage here is that being at a distance from community give the researcher space for viewing and evaluation of interaction of group in a better way. So the thing is, when you get attached with a community, when you become an intrinsic part of that, there will be some aspects which will be missed out for sure, because you are now emotionally attached with those people. That's objectivity that somehow get lost into that process. The emotions that overtakes your scientific approach at times. So now you are not emotionally attached with those people. You are an outsider. You do not have that biasness in you. Whatever is happening in front of you, you record it. That's simple as that. Okay. So Kurt Lewin, he says that, he repeats the same thing, that there is a danger of subjective interpretation and likelihood that an inactive or casual observer, they can misread the social reality. Okay. So if you are not assimilated, if you are not dissolved in that social reality, there will be high probabilities of misinterpretations. There can be multiple interpretations which might come up with that. And it is a very normal phenomena. What we are doing is we are giving a scientific name to what is happening around us. Without even, without knowing what are your requirements. Can I teach you? No. Can I teach anthropology without syllabus? No. I should have an objective to teach. And to interpret syllabus, what should I do? I will look at the previous year papers, how they have been conceptualized, what is the evolving trend into that. All of that we have to do. But in this case, what happens is you are distant from the place, so misinterpretation rates can be very high. Okay. Shortcoming again. So if the group members, they believe that you are not a part of their social cycle, social life, they can conceal, they can hide things from you. You will not be able to grasp the insider view or the amic perspective, which is, nowadays quite relevant in anthropology, amic analytic perspective. So to get an amic perspective, you need to be there with them, need to understand those people. But here that is not possible as such, to get an amic perspective as such. Okay. The objectivity or neutrality, it can be maintained, as simple as that. Okay. So again, it is vice versa of your participant observation. See, when Levin is saying that there is danger of subjective interpretation, you are observing from outside, so interpretation and translation issues will be there for sure, because you have no one to assist you as such. If you have a translator, that's a different thing. If an individual can translate it for you, but you are not having a mental construct of how people are thinking, how they are behaving. You do not have, an intrinsic justification of their social actions. That has been the case, because you see, when we are talking about participant observation, events are interpreted through single observer size. So the problem of translation has always been there. That is why there was a crisis of representation in anthropology. That whose representation or whose translation should be found correct, whether it is the individual who is writing ethnography, okay, or whether it is the people whose interpretation should be taken into account. That become a very bone of contention. So crisis of representation, it emerged. The subject itself, it came in during especially 1980s, coming up with postmodernism, because everyone will be having their own interpretation. If I send you to Trobian, you will be having a different interpretation than me. That is why in non-participant, no, इसमें objective है ना, sorry, that was objective. Debate of objectivity versus subjectivity. See, what we are saying is that even though I am detached from that, I will have my own interpretations. That is one thing. He is talking about danger of separate interpretation, and there is likelihood that inactive or casual observer can misread social atmosphere. So this subjective interpretation is about misreading what is happening in front of you. But when it comes to participant observation, even if you are having misinterpretation, you can always correct them by asking other individuals. That's the difference between both of these methods. In participant, you are with the community. In case of this, even though you are with the community, you are sitting outside, but translation will be very different, because you do not have an amic perspective that how things are working. That differentiates, and that is why crisis of representation arise in anthropology. Okay. Now this became the solution. Okay. Quasi-participant observation. So what happens is that in most of the cases, when you are in a field, or there might be some situations when you are not able to completely situate yourself into the field, or you cannot completely participate in the activity which is going. For example, there might be certain rituals of transition from one stage of life to another, which we call rites of passage. Okay, marriage, for example, and this when child initiation ceremony of children's, starting of education, there are so many rituals for that. Okay, so you cannot be an active participant in every one of them, so you detach yourself at that point of time. things or events in which you feel that you cannot situate yourself or contextualize yourself, you detach yourself from those parts. In other parts, you participate in all the normal activities. That is why it is known as quasi. Quasi means what? Partial. It's partial. Okay. Researcher role is confined to that of researcher, and she declares openly that she is a researcher instead of adopting the role in the community itself. So you have clearly told them that you are a researcher. You have came here for a specific purpose. Okay. You actively participate in some of the ordinary activities and observe passively from distance in others. Just like case of Clifford Geertz, Balinese cockfight. He saw that cockfight happening in front of him. That how cockfight is happening, how police came, how people ran away. But was he involved in raising up a cock and sending it for a fight? No. But let's take the case of what I was talking about, this anthropologist who was adopted as a daughter. She has to perform all the daily chores of the house. She was given 2 rupees to go to the fair. All of that thing. So it depends. When the father died, when that the family which has adopted her, when the father of when the husband died, she was not allowed to perform the rituals. That has been the case. So she was detached from that death rituals in that case. Just to observe that. Okay. So it depends where you want to involve yourself, where you want to detach yourself. So many social research, they are now conducted as a quasi-participant observations, as it gives more freedom to learn as a participant, when to get involved, when to detach yourself. And Shrivastava elaborates, you see, nowadays the ethnographies which are being written, the author is oscillating between participation as well as non-participation. They are clearly talking about the fact that this was the point I was involved in that, and this was the point I was detached into that. That is postmodernist ethnography which is coming up. Okay. So rather than concealing everything into a single frame, the voices are coming out. That polyvocality is coming out. Okay. From an individual's perspective too. So here we have this partial observation where you are participating as well as you are non-participating at times. Okay, simple, very easy, nothing to what we call, think more about it. Simple cases, but and in exam question can come directly that explain observation. See, historical particularism is a school of thought. See, participant observation, it actually began with coming of Malinowski. See, this statement, one has to cut. This statement, it changed the whole course of participant observation. He initiated that thing. See, L.H. Morgan has already done among the Iraqis. He has done. E.B. Tyler, he did. He assisted an archaeologist. Then he wrote Ancient Society. Not Ancient Society, 1851, what was the book? Anuak. Okay. People were already writing. A.C. Haddon has written. W.H.R. Rivers has written. Boas, what he did, he was more opposed to those conjectural histories of evolutionism. He did brought fieldwork into perspective, but it was with Malinowski's fieldwork which changed things. That is why he is the central, proponent of this. Now, the next is your case study. Yes, I was telling that observation can come in exam for sure, high probability for 15 marks. It has been asked earlier as one of the methods. So, if they ask you, define observation, write each of them for 15 marks, that will suffice you. Okay, just incorporate one, incorporate the quotations also, which I have told you of Malinowski, that's important. Okay. Yes, directly they will ask. They will not, critically analyze observation, this and that. No, because these are research methods. They will be asking them directly. So probability is there, so it can be asked. Okay. Next is your case study, another method. So you must have heard this word case study a lot. So case studies are happening. Okay. There was this case study which was being published. Okay. India as a case study. All of that. but what actually case study is in anthropology. Okay. A case study involves in-depth research of particular event. Point number one. You are researching an event in depth. So there is this, you see, when you write your notes for GS, you write them in depth at times. You see, of a particular event, for example, you talk of Indian economy and its impact on social life. Okay, rising prices impact on social life. You will look upon social impacts of that. You will in depth investigate how it is impacting individuals at a very microeconomic level. How price rise, it is impacting the consumption level of individuals, how it is shaping social relations of individuals, whether people are borrowing from banks or whether they are borrowing from people around them. You will look at that. That's become the case in itself. Okay. So in-depth research of particular event, incident or phenomena, where a community or group of people are directly involved or affected. So normally case studies are done nowadays for policy making. Okay, for policy making to understand whether a policy has been working fine among them, among that community, why it has failed, why people are adopting a particular approach, why they are not adopting that, all of that. Okay. So Yin and Srivastava, they have defined in their own ways. Select any definition, whatever you feel like. A case study is an empirical inquiry. Another important thing is that it is not a secondary mode of investigation. It is an empirical. That means you actually research on ground that investigates a contemporary phenomena. Okay, you are investigating a contemporary phenomena. It can be anything. It can be your policy, social problems. Okay, and within real life context. Okay, but the thing is now with coming of digital anthropology, virtual ethnography, it is also moving towards your internet, especially when boundaries between phenomena and context are not clearly evident. So there are two important things in this method. First is it combines different methods. Okay, that is why it is called a meta method. You will be having your observation, interview, okay, schedules, questionnaire. It involves many methods, because when it comes to case, in-depth research of a particular event. So to understand that event or phenomena in depth, you need to have multiple methods in place. I cannot understand how we will perform in civil services just by observing you. I need to have a scale. I need to have a questionnaire to understand what is the aptitude you are working with. I need to have regular question answer sessions to understand whether you will be clearing it or not. All of that. That is why it is a meta method. One point. Second is due to combination of different methods, you have triangulation in place. So it is a meta method as well as it is a method of triangulation, where there is a combination of different level of techniques, method and strategies and theories. So whenever you are combining two or more methods, theories in one place, a triangulation process is being in place. Okay, so whatever you are researching, the social unit on which you are performing your case study, you do it with a meta method as well as through a process of triangulation. So these two are important aspects of your case study. See, meta does not always means, meta means bigger. Meta means bigger. Study of individual case due to uniqueness is referred as intrinsic case study. So there are different types. Study of case as an instrument to describe any issue is referred as instrumental case, and when there are more than one case studies, it is referred as collective case study. So simple statement in that sense. Okay. So case study, as per Srivastava, detailed account of a generic development of an individual, group or institution, association, community of total society. So undertaking any of them as a social unit, you investigate that using different methods with the help of triangulation. Okay, that's one thing. If there is single individual, it is intrinsic case study. If there are multiple, it is collective case study. There are three, no? The case study, the study of case as an instrument to describe any issue. If there is an issue which is being described, such as you're describing female feticide, it becomes your instrumental. But when there are more than one case studies are being studied, it's collective. An individual case due to uniqueness. For example, you say you are studying this, you are studying for say the COVID-19 pandemic. That's an individual case due to unique. It was very unique in history. The kind of impact it had, it has very unique impact. You know. Okay. So that's an intrinsic. Now, it has two purposes, basically double purposes. On one hand, sir, थोड़ा हिंदी का भी यूज कीजिए. ये हिंदी का see, the thing is, people from different backgrounds are there, so not everyone will be able to understand. That is the case. That's the thing. Yeah. Okay, Anshul, if you don't understand something, do let me know. I'll explain you that in Hindi. Okay, don't worry. So case study, it has double purposes. First is attempts to arrive at a comprehensive understanding of group under study. Okay, whatever you are understanding, whatever you are researching, you are trying to bring out a detailed understanding of the processes involved, of the mechanism involved in formulation of that group, or the process which you are studying. Okay, so you are bringing in front a big story what you have understood. Okay, you are bringing that into forward. And second is, it attempts to develop a general theoretical statements about regularities in social structure and processes. Whatever you have understood, you now situate it in a theoretical dimension. Okay, there are two methods, inductive and deductive. So now you try to deduct something from that. Situate it in a theory. You have a theory, you try to understand that. Whatever data you have, you try to understand that whatever you have with the case, or you try to formulate a new theory, or inductiveness as we call it. Okay, either you situate this data in a particular theory, or you try to formulate a new theory with that. Okay, useful for collecting qualitative data. Okay, important thing. So in anthropology, Max Gluckman and Van Velson, they have they formulated a new, basically they extended this case study method by the name of extended case study method. So what happens in extended case study method is, you study a case for an elongated period of time, for a longer duration of time. So if I ask you to study a case, what will you take? Just take a criminal case. In India, there are so many cases which are running for 10, 20, 15 years. Any case which has been running for more than 10 years? It has been completed, right? The Ayodhya case, for example. Ayodhya case, Godara case, Godhra case, any case of riots, 1984 case, all of that, they have been running for 20 years, 30 years. It took time for them. So Gluckman and Wilson, they argued that we should have something known as extended case method. So this was often used for analysis of conflicts and legal disputes. And cases and basically consisted of following a case or event over a longer period of time, so that one could get an insight not into structures and norms but into process of social life. So although Gluckman and Wilson, they were more talking during time of 50s, 40s, okay, referring to those indigenous community, primitive communities of those time. But just take the case of this Ram Mandir issue. Let's take that case. Started in 90s, ended during, no, that bigger issue when people highlighted that during 90s. It was running although for so many years. Okay, from 1800s. When the lock, when the DM, they opened the lock of that temple. So if you observe that case from that day till today, you will find that there is so much change. Where is it? In the social life of individuals. People who were attached with that, there were newer generation who became more attached with that, who fought for it. People from both sides, they took sides. Arguments evolved in courts, and that clearly impacted the religious understanding. It impacted the religious understanding of people, of their culture. It did that. So it was a legal dispute which has religious formulations under it, but it can help you. If you see all those newspaper headings, if you talk with people, you will clearly find yourself that how the topic has evolved from an issue of of praying to an issue of identity. how individual identities get associated with that whole issue. You can clearly yourself feel that people around you, that when when this when the founding stone was being set up, how many people were watching? Even the highest authorities of the country went there. So you see how the structures have changed. You can clearly identify from that. People donated for the construction of temple via digital mediums. But had the case been solved in 90s only, will people be able to donate the way they have donated now with UPIs, with their bank accounts? No. So all of their things, you see, you do that was Gluckman and Wilson was trying to do. So, but it has its own drawbacks also. This case study method, which Ian calls as, it becomes sloppy and has allowed. Okay, we'll come with this in end. We'll start with this characteristics of case study first. Simple characteristics are there. Researcher take one single unit or more of that units, purpose of study, and he can take even a situation. As I was telling you, we took the case of Ayodhya. You can even take one or single unit. You can take even an individual to study. For example, you can just take single unit. Whom can you take? Any situation or any individual whom you feel will be very worthy of doing a case study of. Anyone? Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Okay. We all have more or less this consensus upon that individual's participation, all of that and contribution. So that can be a single unit as an individual. Situation, Ayodhya situation. You can even take kinship. You can take that situation when even spiritual was studying the New Year. There was this Leopard's kin chief who has the highest authority. You can take their case study from like that. Case study of a Kula ring, potlatch, all of that they can be taken. Okay. Selected unit is studied intensively and extensively in detail. Study extends over a long period of time. So you can obtain the natural history of that, because you see during 1940s, 50s, emphasis on history was given. Even Boa started to recollect the history of cultures, but even people like Evans Pritchard, Raymond Firth, they were more proponents of that. We need to collect history of the societies, then only we will be able to understand the social change. Comparative method, when we talk about, without knowing historical understanding, you cannot compare two societies. Okay, synchronic and diachronic method. Synchronic means at present, or in static. What does synchronic means? Synchronic and diachronic. Synchronic means at a particular point of time. Diachronic means in continuity of two different times. Okay. Third is to understand complex of factors that are operative within a social unit as an integrated totality. Self-explanatory statement that if I am studying a kinship pattern, or I am studying, for example, kinship of the Iraqis Indian, or I am studying the South, I am studying kinship patterns of South Indians, Tamils, or where cross cousin marriage is preferred. So I need to understand complex factors, how people are addressed, what are terms of reference, what are terms of address of those individuals. Approach happens to be qualitative again and not quantitative. Holism is another important aspect. We need to collect information on all aspects. Effort is made to know the mutual interrelationship of causal factors. That if I am studying, for example, kinship, I need to understand how it is shaped through marriage, how it is shaped through adoption, how it is now being shaped through coming of new artificial reproductive technologies. Okay, all of that. Behavior of pattern again results in fruitful hypothesis with the data which may be helpful in testing them. So you develop hypotheses also. These are characteristics of case study. Simple characteristics, nothing complex about them. Even a single reading will get you through them. Now advantages. Enables us to understand fully the behavior of the concerned unit. Now you have studied so much about a particular unit, but you have studied so much about the Ayodhya case that you know bits and pieces of that. No one can frame you out in that. You are an expert on that. because case study is about being expertise in a particular case. Neetu, if I don't speak a bit faster, then I'll not be able to complete this. But in case you don't understand, I'll teach you again, don't worry. Okay. Just focus what I'm explaining from this. If you don't understand, do let me know, I'll explain again. Don't worry. These are just simple statements, nothing complicated in advantages and all that. Second is obtain real and enlightened recorded of personal experiences. So when you go to fieldwork, for example, you record personal experiences of individuals, right? The same happens in case study method, because we are saying that it is a meta method. Observation is a part of it. You are recording interviews here. So you are obtaining first-hand data from that, personal experiences. So let's repeat the Ayodhya case. You ask the experiences of the car sevaks who went there. They will if that's a case study, they will tell you that what was the situation at that point of time, how police came, how we ran away, from where different people were coming from different parts of the country. Okay, these are first-hand experiences, personal narratives. Trace out natural history of social unit. Again, relationship with social factors and forces involved in its surrounding. Very simple casual statements that how things are interrelated with each other. Formulating relevant hypothesis. Intensive unit of social units, which are not possible if we either use observation method or schedules. So you see, being a meta method or using triangulation process, now you have a battery of methods with you to study a particular phenomena. So in observation, you cannot focus upon so many things at a point of time. If you are a complete participant observation or you are doing total participant observation, you will not be able to identify all these things which you are able to identify through case study method. Things will be left out, but here you have a battery of methods which you are carrying yourself with. Okay. So if you have data with you, if you have good data with you of a case study, they can also help you in further construction of questionnaire or schedules, because you understand the basic phenomena of social life, how it is working. Okay. Again, use of different methods is possible. Triangulation. Beneficial in determining nature of units to be studied along the nature of universe. Nature of universe means the place, the whole place. For example, when we say universe in study, universe means the overall population from which the sample will be drawn. Okay. For a study, you need to have a sample, and the sample will be drawn from a universe, and that universe is the overall populations from which the sample will be drawn. This is the reason this method is also called mode of organizing data. Emphasis on historical analysis, as we were talking about. Represent real record of personal experiences, again. Makes possible study of social changes. Facilitates drawing of inferences and helps in maintaining continuity of research processes. So here you are able to identify how social changes are occurring. Through case studies, you can identify, again the Ayodhya case if we take, you can identify how social changes have occurred in Ayodhya itself. Has it occurred or not? It has. You see the development there. You see the development, how it is happening. You see the kind of relation people are having between the communities now. It's clearly visible, how the relations are there. Now the limitations. So the first is, the biggest issue with these case study methods are they are seldom comparable. You cannot compare one case study with another. Everyone will have different understandings of cases. That's for sure. Okay. I will have different understanding of Argonauts of the Western Pacific. You will be having a different understanding of Probe and Islanders, wherever you go. This was the same question my professor asked me. No. The name of the book is Argonauts of the Western Pacific. And when I started reading Argonauts of the Western Pacific way back in 2015, I read that Although I started it when I was in graduation, but the full-fledged reading of original text, 15. My professor asked every one of us that what does the word Argonaut mean? We are having different views, whether it means warriors or the natives. It are the natives basically, the people, the Argonauts. So we searched on internet and it came that they are warriors, this and that, but it was the natives, the Argonauts. Okay. So it's not comparable. Dangers of false generalizations are there. Just taking a single case, you are trying to generalize things. Okay. The same issue which Kevin was talking about. Danger of subjective interpretations are there. Okay. Because no set rules are followed in collection of information and few units are studied. If few units are studied, that means collective case study. Single means intrinsic, and with respect to any social issue, you're instrumental. Consumes more time and requires a lot of expenditure. So when you're studying a case, it requires a lot of time. You have to go to different places, you have to trace networks, you have to talk with people, fill schedules, write every day, see the historical documents, this and that, so many things you have to do in that case. So it's very time consuming. So Reed Bryan says, so let's remove this. It is based on several assumptions which may be very realistic at times, which may not be at very realistic at times, and the usefulness of case data is always subjected to doubt. Okay, simple statement again. It can only be used in a limited sphere, not possible to use in case of big society. Okay, so if I am talking about tribal societies which are very restricted in nature with respect to their geographical situation, you can use them on them. You can generalize that in that case. Okay. It was due to these case studies only when that evolutionary ladder was presented that all these savages are, in that same sequence. What they were doing case studies of all these, the earlier ethnographers. Okay. Response of investigator is important in, is an important limitation of the case study method. Simple, not comparable, false generalizations, expensive, consuming more amount of time based on assumptions, applied in limited sphere. 4 and 5 are more than enough. Okay. And with respect to case study, it has been asked in exam for many a times, for 15 and 20 marks also. So when it comes in exam, it will be directly asked, explain case study, define what the word case study means. Okay, what does case study mean? Explain these three things: intrinsic, instrumental, collective. Okay. Talk about meta method and triangulation. Talk about the double purpose. Talk about Max Gluckman and Van Velzen. It is very important to talk about extended case method because it specifically stems from anthropology. Okay. Characteristics. Simple characteristics are there. Advantages and the limitations. This will suffice over 15-20 marks. And believe me, supplement this with an example, any example of anthropology, case study. I think I have case study example. Okay, that is different. Supplemented, you will not get lesser than, for say, 11 for sure out of 15. That's my guarantee too. If you can write all this, 10.5 or 11 for sure. Supplement with an example. Just do not write Ayodhya's example that I was just giving for reference. Use anthropological example. There are so many of them. Okay. Because they will be asking you the method basically. Okay. They'll not. That's the case. Life history again important. Not important, but let's dwell upon it. So again, the word itself says life and history. Life plus history. Tracking down an individual's life history. Simple. But that is not the case, that we are only looking at the history. See, when we talk about history, it is is it that we neglect the present? We always refer history in context to the present. That is one case. So life history as a method, it also undertakes what is happening and what has happened with an individual. What has happened in an individual's life and what is presently happening. It is a qualitative method, number one, that shows overall picture of respondent's life and the important life events. So if I started asking you, tell me something about your life or your life history, you will tell me that I was born and ABXYZ place. My father, my mother, they are working in their sphere, either housewife, this and that. My brothers, sisters are working there, this and that. I went to different places to study. My father was, for example, was in defense. Frequent transfers were there. Okay. I have friends across the places. All of that you will start explaining. You will tell me then I first went to, for say, Missouri at this point of time, and I saw the IS Academy, and it influenced me to become an IS. Things like that. Okay. That was a life-changing moment when you saw the academy for the first time. Important life events. For people around you, it might be a normal thing that you went to Missouri, but Missouri changed the whole life course of that individual. That's one thing. Overall pictures of respondent's life and the important life events. One, account of a life based on interviews and conversation. Important things are, to get a life history, you will perform interview and conversation analysis. How will I know about your life history without doing an interview with you? Okay. Based on collection of a written or transcribed oral account requested by a researcher. I can ask you to write about your life history. I can ask you, okay, tell me about your life history, everything. Okay. Or an oral account. I can record it with a tape recorder. I can document it through videos, through camera. Now it has become more easier. Just log into your Zoom account, Google Meet account, Instagram account. You can collect life histories of people just by, going live. Also known as life history interview technique. Since all information are collected by interviewing the respondent, important highlight. Many a times, respondent is asked to narrate his or her life experiences instead of asking close-ended questions. So you are not asking close-ended questions here as such. I will not ask you, tell me about your life. No. I'll ask you, when was you born? When did you born? You say, sir, I was born in 2000. Do you know what happened in 2000 when you were born? You will tell me, oh sir, new millennium started. Okay. Then I'll ask you question. I'll probe you to open up whatever things you can relate with that particular domain or particular time frame. These forms of telling one story in his own way is called narrative method. Important, highlight this thing, that the way you are telling your story to me, you are narrating your story to me via an interview process. It is a narrative method, as we call it. Simple. Main purpose, to describe what is like to be the particular person, meaning of the person who is being interviewed. Okay. So you are getting inside the mind frame of the individual. You are trying to feel how it likes to be a particular individual. Often people, what they do, they dress like, they say to be an officer, dress like an officer. So people start taking feeling of that. So to feel yourself like a collector, you have to dress like that. How do you dress? Like formal attires and all of that. Yes, more or less. There are so many cases where people become, all this, especially in Noida, there are so many cases, fake IS officers, IPS officers, so many cases are there. So they go into that picture without, if they are not able to, there was this case when the individual was not able to clear the exam. He started feeling like an IS officer. Wherever he goes, he says that I am this, I am that. Okay, so all of that. So you are trying to feel, there is this idiom that to fill one's shoes, to get into one's shoes, to see how it feels to be one individual. Okay, so I can only feel an aspirant feel if I started preparing for the IAS exam? है ना? That's the thing. Life history not only reveals certain facts about a personal life experience, but at the same time uncovers social situations, issues which could have impacted person at different point of time. So if I'm asking you about your life history, I'm also getting a view of the social situations which have prevailed in your life, and from that I can get an idea how was the social environment around you. So people who are, say, who took part in freedom struggle, if I started taking their life history, I can get around the fact that okay, it was very much, discrimination was there, when they will say that I was not allowed. Just say if I start taking Mahatma Gandhi's life history, he will say that I was not allowed to board the train, I was thrown out of it. I can get that there was discrimination which was happening. Okay, all of that things, issues which could have impacted person at different point of time. So people might be going through colonial trauma, people who have felt the partition horrors, how they impacted their whole life. So all these things will be coming into that life history part. Life history is most often focused on specific aspect of a person's life. Okay, I can ask you about, okay, tell me just about your childhood. I'm more interested in that because I'm trying to understand childhood experiences of different people, or I can try to understand how did you cope up with a particular disease. For example, just say, take the case of Yuvraj Singh. He struggled through cancer, he got treatment through it, he has written a book, We Can, Yes We Can, like that. So if I started looking at a particular aspect of his life, I will look upon that because that's something which made him the biggest hero of people who are struggling with cancer. Lance Armstrong, another case. Okay. Life history is revealed culture and history as they have lived. Again, the case of partition, people who have experienced that, people who have boarded train to Pakistan or who have came from there, who have witnessed bloodshed, they have, lived history. They have seen how things are happening and culture as such. Okay, all of that. Next is in life story interview, you have an interviewer as well as an interviewee. The interviewer is the narrator of the story, of his or own story. The interviewer is the guide or the director. Okay, you are directing someone's life story basically. That's what you are doing. Through this interview process, the narrative method which is taking place, you are directing someone's life history on paper or on record. Quality of interview depends on type of relationship which is happening between individuals. So rapport establishment is a prerequisite. If it is there, it is good. Changing experience outlooks of individuals in their daily lives can be observed. What they see is important. How to provide interpretation of accounts they give of their past, present, and future. Okay, so you can get how individual life circumstances have changed, how their perception have changed. Once you will become an officer, how your perception of life will change. That's what will be recorded. When you will be called for interview, you will be asked all those things. That you can be asked that what was the one situation that changed the whole course of your life. You can be asked. Okay. Reflects a turn away from objectivity and privileging of subjectivity and positionality. Again, you are trying to bring in the subjective experience of the individual. So, three things. We are trying to examine relation between cause and effect, agency and structure. What are the things which are happening in life? What was the cause behind that? And what was the effect beyond that? So, if you fall ill, or if you went to Mussoorie, for example, if I ask you, why did you go to Mussoorie? You say, I went to travel. Cause was travel, and effect was an inspiration to become an officer. Okay. Agency and structure. Did you know what the concept of agency? Structure, social structure, and all of that. Agency and power, there are two things. Everyone has their own agency of what? Car, motorcycle, Bike ki agency. Everyone have their own agency in their life. That how they can change the course of things. Power or agency, they equate synonymously with each other. So if you have an agency, you have some power within you to change the course of certain events in life. Okay. Now, they are useful at the exploratory stage of research when information is scarce and conceptualization is limited. So if you go to a field, you want to understand how people, experiences, you want to understand the basics of that community, basically, how people have lived there, and you don't have enough data. You call an individual to write down their life history. So during his life history, he will tell you so much, that who were the tribal chiefs, if that individual is, somehow older in age, if who were the tribal chiefs, how the political system has evolved, how the colonial people came, what were the impact of, harvest, how the festivals were made, all that will be told to you. So in initial stages of your exploratory research or descriptive research or ethnography, it will help you in getting a broader understanding about how things are working, how social situations are being constructed. Okay. So it is used in conjunction with other qualitative and quantitative methods. Again, life story is subsequently edited, interpreted and presented in number of ways, often in conjunction with other sources. Interviewer is a guide or director of the process. So it is edited, interpreted and presented. Life histories may be topical, focusing on one segment of a life. It can be complete, attempting to tell full details of a life as collected. And life histories are most effective, they are most impactful when they have a story, when they have a beginning, middle and the end. They are not like some movies which do not have head and legs. They are just flowing away. Okay. So it has a good beginning, it should have a good middle part and as well as an end. And there is this, what we say, a drawback is that whatever series of events that has been narrated, it is not always the case that they are, they are coherently attached to each other. They might be, unsequenced at times. Logic might be missing in some of the narrations. Okay. Coherency might be an issue. It all depends upon the skill of the interviewer, how they are editing it, how they are presenting it. Because you see, when someone gives an account of their life through interview, they will always bring out things which have never happened. Figment of imaginations will be there for sure. Even if you have not studied for 14 hours to clear the exam, you will still say I have studied for 14 hours. Just to, why? Just to adhere to the social norms which are there with the preparation. If you will say, oh no, I just studied 6 hours, who will believe you? Despite of the fact you studied 6 hours. But you will say, okay, I studied for 12, 14 hours. Just to adhere to the social norms. Okay. Issues of memory. Again, the issues of validity are there. Impact of researcher on respondents. All of this makes a difficult tool to handle by a novice researcher. So if someone who is a very amateur in doing fieldwork or conducting life history, validity might be a very big issue. Okay. In that case. And impact of researcher on respondent means how the questions are being asked, whether they are being interrupted or not, all of that will be accounted. And these are some important additional information which you can mention. David Mandelbaum, anthropologist, he has written the life history of Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, he has written the life history of Mahatma Gandhi, 1973. Around how much? 30-31 pages are there. It's written good, in very good sequences, I remember. So he has, talked about positive and negative adaptations of Gandhiji, all of that. Stimuluses of African experiences in sequences. So Mandelbaum, he says every life story or life history has 3 aspects. First is the dimension, second is principal turnings, and third is person's characteristics or means of adaptations. You need not to explain all of that, but if in case life history comes, just write according to David Mandelbaum, a life history approach compromises of dimension of aspects of person's life, principal turnings, and person's adaptation to different understandings of life. These two are examples, although Mandelbaum's examples can be there. Mandelbaum's Life History of Mahatma Gandhi, 1973. Aberil's Analysis of Sun Chief, the autobiography of Hopi Man, they are quite famous. Sidney Mint's Life History of a Puerto Rican. These can be used as example of life history method. Okay. Clear? Simple? Now we'll come to genealogy. Okay. Another important topic can be asked for 10 marks or 15. Has been asked many a times. Yeah. Genealogical method. Question will not be asked as genealogy, it will be asked as genealogical method. Explain genealogical method. Okay. So it involves diagrammatic representation of one informant's family ties extending over several generations depending upon memory of informant. I will just show you a genealogy. You will get a good idea. Okay. Okay, in the end I will show you how genealogy looks like. Okay, I have to transfer it from the device. So here basically what we do is we have a diagram of our relatives. Okay. See, it starts from an individual called ego. We called it as ego, from where we start our genealogy. Okay. I'll ask this person about his family, that who are the members, till how many generations he can remember. This is the present generation. Father and mother are the first generation, second, third, fourth, fifth. You can subsequently go till the point you can remember. Okay. And it is not that you will be only remembering how many sisters or brothers your father have. You will also know about your mother's side also, about her mothers also. You know that. No. So you will create a family tree, basically a very big family tree till the last generation you remember. Okay. That's a simple thing that which we do in genealogy. So diagrammatic representation of one's informant's family ties extending over several generations depending upon memory of informant. Some, well, at least definition please in this. Okay, I'll do that. So you see, depending upon your memory, you are giving a diagrammatic representation of your family ties. You are diagrammatically telling me that these are your family members, these are the relations you have, these are the relatives you have, these are the number of relatives you have, this is married, this is unmarried, all of that. For that we have signs and symbols, we will talk about it. It helps in tracing the line of descent. Okay, simple. So in anthropology, the method was invented by W.H.R. Rivers during the Torres Strait expedition of 1898-99. That I myself don't know. Wait. They also came to India. Just let me tell you. So it's between Australia and Melanesia, the islands of Australia. So between Australia and islands of Melanesia. Okay. So after this Torres Strait expedition, rivers came to India also to study the Todas of Nilgiris. Okay. So according to rivers, primary purpose was to improve analysis of social organization. So to understand social organization, you need to have a genealogy. Why? Because with genealogy, you get the concrete actuality of interpersonal relations and living arrangements. Once I have a family tree, once I have a family diagram of individuals around me, I can understand that how two individuals are related with each other. Because you see, in a tribe or in societies which Malinowskian people like, what is line of descent? So in kinship, anyone? Line of descent? Descent? Exactly. So Anshul, by descent, which we means, suppose you want to trace your ancestry through your father. So that will be your patrilineal descent. If you are tracing your descent through mother, it will be your matrilineal descent. So line of descent means how you are tracing your ancestral what? That's what I'm saying. There is a patrilineal and there is a matrilineal line. The way you are tracing tracing your blood relations either through matrilineal or patrilineal side. That's basically descent. So descent means how you are tracing your ancestors through which line, either through mother or father. So when initially especially after rivers, the classical ethnographies which we have, all the anthropologists, they made genealogies, and see, genealogies are so big because people, they have a very good memory who are in tribes, in those indigenous primitive communities, because they are small homogenized communities. More or less everyone is related to each other, and when you draw a genealogy, you will find that connections of different households can be traced down with that. If I draw your genealogy, for example, you and your, for say, maternal uncle, they are living in the same locality, and if I ask them, they will tell me about you and you will tell me about them. I can relate both of you through the genealogies. Through these, I can identify how you are addressing some individuals, what are the terms of reference, what are terms of address. I can identify who is married or unmarried. I can identify the occupations also by asking you. If I am drawing a genealogy, for example, say if I ask you that what is your father, what's the occupation, you will say he's a government teacher. I'll write GT. There I'll write the abbreviation GT, means government teacher. Okay. I can ask you at what age he got married. You say okay, he married at 25. I'll just write 25. That means single number means age of marriage. In abbreviation I can write single number means marriage. All of that. So I can trace different things across generations. So with generations, what will I come to know? That age of marriage has increased. Did your father marry at the same age when your grandfather married? No, he married a bit late. Will you marry at the same age your father married? You will marry a bit more late. That's a fact. So you can identify that. You can identify change in occupations. That how from pastoral people, or you say just say working under the British, someone's family now have their own business. Starting working as a clerk, people might have their own businesses now. Change of occupations, change in marriage, change in education line. You will clearly find there is an increment in education system, educational qualification. So through genealogy, you can trace all of that. You can trace relations also, you can trace these things also. Okay. And Malinowski, he defined genealogy as synoptic chart of number of connected relations of kinship. Okay, simple. Connected relations of kinship. You have a chart for that, which we call as a genealogical chart. For Malinowski, it was more about kinship chart, as we call it. So in genealogy, kinship lineage is traced about from a person who is called ego. Ego is a neutral person here. It can be a female, it can be a male, but we take ego as a neutral individual. Okay, from which the lineage is traced through lines of father, through lines of mother, tracing both ancestors and descendants as long as ego could recover. So people who are your descendants as well as your ancestors, whoever you can recall, they are traced by drawing a synoptic chart. It does not mean linear representation, because if I will ask you about your what we say, kinship lineage, will it be the fact that you only know about your mother's side, not about your father's side? Even if you know two people from your father's side, you will tell me about it. So it is always tracing the ties bilaterally on both the sides. Idea being to include many persons as possible over as many generations as possible. So if you can recall that a big family tree, that will help me in understanding that what might be the migration patterns from where the people have come. Okay, it can help me how people are related from one place to another place. So expressed graphically in a document called genealogy that shows family connections of the ego or the respondent, same thing. Okay, so ego is the person through which genealogy is being traced, or the person of reference, used in present times by combining egocentric network analysis. So there is something called ANT, actor network analysis, or social network analysis, which we do. In medical anthropology, genealogical method has been used to prove that Kuru, the disease of Kuru, it is not inherited. It is not genetic in nature, because there was this tribe who believed that Kuru is being inherited genetically. So when they used genealogy to see that whether the earlier individuals have that or not, they found that no, they do not have Kuru. So through genealogy, that issue was resolved, that it is not genetic in nature, the Kuru. It is a culture specific disorder, as we call it. So kinship chart is an analytical tool. This is not important here as such. So this method is entirely dependent upon respondent's recalling power. So if I ask you about your family, or if I ask your father, who will be having more information about your ancestors? Your father. So people who are elderly, they will have more information about the genealogical ties or the kinship ties which you have. Okay. So because the information is from person's memory, it also poses a threat to reliability. Okay, because you see in certain tribes who have mythical ancestors, they will trace down it to their totem, or there are clans, they will trace down it to some demon, the Asura clan. They trace down their lineage to Ravana. They do that. Okay, so there might be chances of having reliability, whether they are speaking right or wrong. Simple fact. Choice of informant, I have told you again. So good memory, people have good understanding. So genealogical diagram, they basically show us 5 things. Real, living or dead individuals, how they are related to the society or the individuals in question. So when we draw genealogical tree, we can tell how these living individuals are related, how the dead are related to the person who is in focus, how 2 dead individuals were related. Model of particular kinship systems. We have different kinship systems. Anyone? Crow, Omaha. Heard of it? Kinship systems, there are different. There are 2 types, classificatory and descriptive, given by Morgan. But there are certain sub-classificatory system. Crow system is there, Iroquois system is there, Omaha system is there, all of that. There are 5 of them. If anyone? No, not Malayan. That's different. There are 5 of them. So you can have them, see, if I trace, so if I draw genealogy of an individual from US, he or she will address her father's brother as well as mother's brother as an uncle, both. But will you address your father's brother as uncle and your mother's brother as also uncle? You will address both them with different terms. But that is not the case here. So you can identify the kinship system. What kind of kinship system is being prevalent there? You can identify that. That's a simple case. So circulation of gifts, this Marcel Mauss, the gift. So context of such relationships or a particular subsidiary aspect of them or system. So through this you can, see, gift giving is a symbolic process as well as a ceremonial process in some places. Nowadays it's not an obligation for you to give return gifts to your friends in birthday and all of that, but in these primitive society, gift giving is a very important condition to continue social relations. It is not the fact that you have to immediately give the gift, you have an obligation to give gift. That's one thing. If someone is giving a gift, you are now obliged to give that person back. So it goes through generations. If there is a missing, you can find out that yes, that individual did not completed his obligation of giving the gift. Full exchange. If someone missed out the full exchange, you can identify through all of that. Abstraction model of kinship is more or less common to a number of societies. You can identify models like where cross cousin marriages are prevalent, South India case. Okay. Analytical and folk model design. So you can get into the mind of a society with the kinship models. Because you see, when Levi-Strauss gave his structuralist model, when he talked about binary systems, he studied kinship very detailed, in this elementary structure of kinship, his book. And with kinship, you can clearly identify how a society is modeled, how they associate with individuals, how they reflect their social understandings. You can clearly identify from these models. That is why structural anthropology of Levi-Strauss, it is based on this kinship and folk model designs. So these are some symbols which are used in genealogy. A triangle is a male, equal means marriage, single line means descent bond. See, this is a father and this is a mother. They have 3 children. The ego, the gender, which we do not know because it's neutral. Circle means female, triangle means male. Sister is written as C, Z, F, Z. There are so many terminologies for that. So this line, it's line of descent, that they are the descendant of these individuals. If I draw a line here, that means divorce has happened. Deceased, line in center of that. Okay. Female married twice, divorced twice, for example. So you can, write it down. And elder individuals are always on left, younger are always on right. So if this individual has a brother, that means he is younger to him. Elderly to him. And the sister is younger. Okay. So this is how we make. There are so many symbols of that into this. Okay. Now, coming next is oral history. So your oral history is preserving the insights that are not found in your printed material, basically. Things which are not there in print. You can find that through oral history, because see, there are 2 kinds of tradition, little and great traditions. Robert Redfield, little tradition and great tradition. Heard of it? Process, great and little traditions. Indian anthropology. Redfield. So the little traditions, when we talk about, they are basically the traditions of the unwritten traditions, the oral traditions, and the great traditions are the textual traditions, the written traditions. Okay, so little traditions are those. So your little traditions are basically your part of your oral history. Okay. Oral history is a field of study, or it's a method of gathering, preserving, and interpreting the voices and memories of people, communities, and participants in past events. So you are doing 3 things. You are gathering preserving and interpreting the events or the memories of people that has happened in the past. Whatever has happened in the past, your mythologies, your stories, they are all past. So, okay, they are all past. There are so many stories which are unwritten. They are just being passed down. Without it, in tribes, it is the norm. They do not have that written history. Many of them, they just passed it down through oral traditions. So, you write them, you gather them, you preserve them in libraries, archives, all of that after, noting them down. So, whatever has been done, and it is, when Levi-Strauss, he studied the mythologies, stories of, the collected stories of certain tribes in India, US, Indian tribes. He found that there is always a hero and a villain, binary in stories. So most of these things are based on binary this system. Then he came to front that we have a binary system of understanding things around us. So you will find that in every story there are two, one is a hero, one is a villain, more or less. The world is in binary, as they say, but it is not the case. So through that, so the objective is not to interpret, but to record factual evidence, creating primary documents from which historians can reconstruct past. So as a method, our aim is to reconstruct the past. So for archaeologists, it will be a very good exercise, writing down the oral history. People who go to the field workers, social anthropologists, for them it will be also a very good exercise, because people like Evans Pritchard, they say that we need to have a natural history of the place. Even Robert Redfield. It is the oldest type of historical inquiry. Okay, even before your writing, people were gathering oral histories. Then only they came into the world around you. Predating written record, most of them, and most of modern initiated with tape recorders in 1940s. Now you have your digital technologies. So you will find that with coming of tape recorders, people started, to record oral histories of people when they went to field. Now you have digital technologies. You need not to carry that much of tape recorder with you. Small mic, mobile phone, anything can be taken, and it can be directly transmitted to different parts of the world. In his book, Doing Oral History, Donald Ritchie explains, oral history collect memories, personal commentaries of historical significance through recording interviews. So main focus is upon collecting the memories and personal commentaries of events which are historically significant. You are not collecting anything just like that. Events which are historically significant, which has shaped a particular individual's lifespan or a cultural lifespan, they are being recorded. Okay, how it came into prominence. So you see, each tribe, they have their own story of how they came into prominence. What how they trace their ancestry to a particular individual, mythical or non-mythical, anything. So an oral history interview, it consists of a well-prepared interview, questioning an interview and recording their exchange. So you cannot haphazardly ask that, tell me about how your tribe came to or how your community came into existence. You cannot ask like that. There is a sequence of things that you need to know, that who were the first individuals, from where they came, how this particular ritual it is in place, why are we studying that ritual, why this story is prevalent. Okay, so you work in sequence in that case. Okay, so create written record and produce archival materials. That is the aim of this method. So you record, interview and preserve. Simple. Two things we do in this: narrative analysis and biography. So there are individuals who are historically very significant. Narrative analysis, again, we have done in this life story method also, life history method. Okay. Oral history helps round out the story of past. Again, a very simple fact that you get to know about the past. Helps us understand how individuals and communities experience the forces of history. Because you see, during the course of human societal evolution, there are different events which have shaped us. This first is the Neolithic Revolution. One thing, Neolithic Revolution started before advent of writing. Okay, the moment Holocene came into prominence, when global temperature started rising and the ice started melting. Okay, that was one significant event. Origin of language, origin of mythologies, coming of these what we say, coming of social structures in place, developing of cities, all of that. They were important historical events which has happened in individual's life, and each community, they have different versions of that. They have different versions of that. Just take a case of genealogy. I'll give you an example of genealogy. So Srinivas talks about it, the Sanskritization process. So in Sanskritization process, you always try to emulate the upper caste or the twice born caste rituals. You try to act like them by adopting their rituals, all of that. So there were some communities who, manipulated their genealogical links. They belong to lower socioeconomic strata, but they trace their link to some Rajput clans by manipulating their genealogies. So it completely changed their course of history. Now they will say they are a part of the Rajput clan, but actually that was not the case. Just to be in the process of cultural mobility, they did that. Okay, so things like that. What has changed and what has stayed same over time. So things what have changed during course of history and how they are different now, because there are some communities which apart from having their own oral histories, their oral traditions, now with coming of different globalized forces, they are trying, people who have recorded them, they are dying out. If they are not writing it, they will die out, and they will have a very different version of history from that time, because people who have died, they have left nothing. They have left nothing as such. If they have not transmitted that oral history to people, what will be the version of history now? It will be very different. It will be more technologically dominant version of history, which they will be telling to future generations. So preserve for future generations a sound portrait of who we are in the present and what we remember about the past. So it is about a journey of past to present, that whatever we are today, how we came to be that. Okay, so that's a simple aspect of this oral history. So normally we try to get the mythologies, the folklore, the stories, all through these your oral histories. Okay, all of that. And there are regional variations of this oral histories. You see, there are so many versions of Ramayana. There are so many versions. In Bali they have a different version. In Thailand they have a different version. In India we have different. In South we have a different version. Who have written Ramayana in South? Ramayana, South's Ramayana. Ramcharitmanas, Tulsidas, heard of it? There are so many versions of it also. Okay, so each region has their own versions of histories, despite of the fact that they belong to same ancestor. Okay, I give you an example. I went to a place in Western Uttar Pradesh, and there were 8 villages who were, those 8 villages have the same ancestor. They have the same ancestor, the common ancestor. They have the same one. But each village have different version of history. The ancestor, he had 6 or 7 sons who came to that place and separated out and established 8 villages. But each of them have different versions that how they came there. And they came at the same point of time. So how come it be a very different version? Like if you are coming here, you will all have a same version of this class, more or less, that I taught you these things. But how come if you come at 10 minutes late, 50 minutes late, 20 minutes late, then it can be different. But if you are establishing it at the same time, coming from a same ancestor, how can it be so different? That one is claiming that they are exactly warriors from Rajasthan, the other one is claiming we came from a nearby place. So you see how, just to situate yourself or contextualize yourself in that social structure, in that social reality, we at times fabricate information and we cannot be exactly sure that whether it is true or not. That's the danger of interpretation as we talk about. Okay. Now, data presentation, interpretation and analysis. So you see, you have data with you. Now what to do with that? What to do with that? You have collected data. What to do with that? She has given the answer. It's Kamban. Anshul is Kamban, not Kabar. Okay. So you see, in research, we have so much of data across the world that we do not exactly know what to do with that, and we are still collecting more and more and more. The already data we have, we do not exactly know what to do with that. Lakhs of papers are being published every year. Still, we do not know how to make sense of it. Okay. So people, when they go to field, they cannot leave that data raw. They need to process it to give a voice to that data. Malinowski's ethnography is famous because he made sense of it by organizing that book, by organizing that data in form of monograph. Okay. That's why it made sense to us that how Kula is being performed. Margaret Mead's work makes sense to us because she went to field, collected data, presented that data in form of a monograph or an ethnography. That's why it makes sense. So in earlier times, in classical ethnography, what we have is holistic approach. We have a holistic approach that collects everything about that particular tribe or a particular community. Okay, that's what the case. But now research is becoming more problem oriented. We go to a particular community, we see, we focus on a particular problem. For example, say dowry. We want to understand the perspectives of dowry in a community, rather than understanding, why children are not playing in the playground. That's not a concern. Is it related to dowry? No, not as such. Relations can be developed through hypothesis, but that's a different case. So whatever data we have, we need to conceptualize it, we need to present it before the audience so they can read it in a lucid manner. Okay. And Margaret Mead in anthropology was one person whose books became very famous because she presented data in a language which can be understood by everyone around her, not by using so many jargons in her words or in her works. Okay, because when you are learning a new language with the people you are living or doing observation with, it is a fact that you will use some of those words in your ethnography, or you will try to devise certain new words, the phenomenon of neologism like coining of new words. So to present data in a more refined manner, more understandable manner, we need to have certain processes to do that. And with time, all these has evolved, especially with coming of computers, with coming of software such as SPSS. Tableau is one software. So SPSS is of IBM. Okay, you must have seen on various social media sites how data is being presented in graphs, pie charts, in your budget also, economic surveys, all those data, how it is being presented. Okay, so all of that. So basically data is of two types, primary and secondary. We did secondary data as a method. Primary data is the one which you collect directly from the field, as simple as that. Qualitative and quantitative data, another part. Quantitative means data respect to numbers. Okay, data respect to numbers. Qualitative means respect to collection of information through interviews or the textual data, the verbal data. Analysis, qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis of the data, because you have two kinds of data with you, primary and secondary, or quantitative data or qualitative data. You can also have mixed data, like using both of the data. Normally we use mixed methods into that. Okay, so we will focus on qualitative data analysis. There are 5 types through which this is done. First is through content, narrative, discourse, framework and grounded theory. So content analysis basically talks about categorizing verbal or behavioral data to classify, summarize and tabulate the data. So whatever data you have, you categorize that data into different set. Suppose I collected data upon female feticide. So I will be having a lot of data for that. I will have different data from different people. I will categorize it. What are the social factors for that? What are the economic factors for that? What are the biological factors for that? Each of them will be classified. Then I will do analysis of each of them. Content, the content which I have, I will classify that into different segments and then I will evaluate it. That's the content. Whatever you have, you classify it, summarize and tabulate that data. You have a set of arguments with you. Now you will tabulate them, that these are the reasons. Narrative. In life history approach, we have talked about it, how we do narrative analysis. Okay. Discourse analysis. So discourse is basically a word which is now very much prevalent in social sciences, especially after 70s, 80s. In linguistic and anthropology, discourse analysis is very important, but it's not in syllabus as such. So discourse is basically something which is very general around you, which is very prevalent around you in terms of its language. A topic which is very profound around you, which is very much in in discussion around you. So we do an analysis of that through discourse analysis. Method of analysis of naturally occurring talk and all types of written text. So nowadays, what type of discourse is there? Discourse of nationalism? The kind of discourse of nationalism we have today, is it the same which we have before 2014? No, it's very different now. Have we ever done what we did on 15th August this time? Like, the flag event, Har Ghar Tiranga. Did we do that in past? So the discourse is about how nationalization should be conceptualized. It is everywhere in newspapers, in magazines. It is written as well as oral. So discourse analysis, because it is prevalent at a particular point of time. Framework analysis, more advanced method. It has several stages. So here we identify a thematic framework. We do coding, charting, mapping and interpretation. So coding, you all know, it's not that computer coding. We give codes. The data which we have, we give codes to that, A, B, C, D, or we can give whatever we like. So say for example, for marriage, we give code A, kinship B, C, D, okay, all of that. So we give code, we do coding. So if we have a schedule with us, we have a lot of data, we have a census data with us. So we can say that individuals who are having a higher qualification, say graduation, the code is 1. For individuals having 12th, code is 2, 10th, 3, uneducated 4. That is coding that we do in Excel sheet. Normally we used to do it in Excel sheets. Now we have softwares like SPSS, IBM software SPSS, okay. And other one, like we do in SPSS, okay, yeah. Mapping and interpretation. We do mapping. What do we mean by mapping? That when we go to field, first of all we do, one thing is we create maps of the field, okay. This mapping is about your data mapping, that which data will be characterized at which point or which place, simple. And interpretation. So interpretation it has become very important after 70s when Clifford Geertz came into scene. Thick description, that it is not just to explain the social actions, but also to explain the conditions which are prevailing at that point of time. Okay, so for example, when he talks about thick description, he says the cockfight which is happening in Bali, the Balinese cockfight, it is not just a simple fight. It is a fight of masculinity of two individuals. So much is at stake. You are not feeding a cock, you are feeding your own ego. You have to fight into that battleground. So much is at stake. Your money, your social prestige. Can you extract that from that? No. So the context in which that has, be structurized. Grounded theory. So here we have a single case, then we formulate theory with that, especially in case study method, which we use. Additional cases are examined to see if they contribute to theory. So when we have a collective case study, we will see whether it holds true or not. Or if we have a single study, we do grounded theory. Similarly, this we do as middle range theory in archaeology also. So grounded theory is also very extensively used method in research. You have a single case, you try to develop theory with that, and that is what initial anthropologists have tried to do. Like Margaret Mead, she not Mead, initially through cases of Africa, the tribal cases of Africa, there were so many generalizations which were trying to be formulated, because anthropology was always, in initial days, it was always trying to formulate generalizations about how societies work. The functional perspective, it was trying to say that how that society is like an organism. And how did Malinowski came into formation? By when he went to study the Strawberry Islanders. Okay, all of them. So this, there is more to this. There is systems analysis, but these 5 are main in this. Very simple to understand, nothing to it. Then there is quantitative data analysis, the data which we have raw numbers, turning them into meaningful data. The surveys you conduct, the censuses you have, the schedules you have, questionnaires you have, interviews you have, all of that. So with the application of statistical tools and critical thinking, we convert that into meaningful order. Okay. So we have 2 measures, descriptive statistics as well as inferential statistics. Within descriptive statistics, we have measures of central tendency, mean, median and mode. Simple, you know what mean, median and mode are, average frequencies. Okay. Measures of dispersion, range, mean deviation, standard deviation. Measures of skewness, kurtosis, and measures of relationship, covariance and Pearson coefficient. So need not to explain more about them. Just go through Wikipedia, just read one line of each of them. Very simple. Although it's very rare that it will be asked as such, but know that these are the measures which we use to do quantitative data analysis. This is with descriptive, and in inferential analysis we have hypothesis testing. We go to field with hypothesis, we test them. Confidence intervals, anyone? So leave it. Normal distributions curves, we have curves within which the data should be situated. If the data is fluctuating from that curves, that means it is faulty in nature. Okay, to situate data in a normal curves. T distribution, that we have tests like student test, chi-square test, all of that, regression test. Confidence intervals, 5% confidence, 95% confidence intervals, CLT, regression analysis, and comparison of different means. Okay, these are more mathematical, statistical in nature, because we draw inferences from them. Okay, all of that. Just remember these names, either write one or two lines. Now, one last thing. Sampling techniques. Let's not leave anything. Okay. It has been asked in 10 marks initial a few years back, samplings. Okay. So, from a population, if you are not doing ethnography basically, normally in, in surveys, in all of your these religious freedom survey, press freedom survey, you have a sample. How do we get that sample? So sample basically is something which is a representative of the whole population, and sampling specific principle used to select members of population to be included in the study. So to involve people, so if I want to understand perception of aspirants towards the UPSC examination, so will I go to school children? No, I will go to people like you. You will be my sample, and within you, can I cover individuals from across the India? Will it be possible for me? No. So I will select a representative sample from you that can be representative of a whole UPSC community or aspirant community. Okay, and that I will be do with my sampling techniques. There are 2 sampling techniques: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability is more into your refined structures or more methodological or mathematical oriented. Non-probability is different, and we'll deal with them. Probability means that every item in the sample or every individual in the sample have equal chance of being included in the sample. Okay, so every individual has equal chance of being included in the sample, and it is free from bias, because if each individual have the chance, that means it is free from bias, that I do not have preference for anyone. There are 5 types of probability sampling. First is your simple random, that from a population, from a universe, you pick up any random individual. So if I want to study how if I want to study the examination pattern and its perception, I can pick any one of you. So each of you have an equal chance. Okay. Every case of population have equal probability of inclusion in the sample, but it has certain disadvantages. You need to have a very big frame of understanding. You need to have a very big frame to actually have a representative sample, which is your universe. So, and if I want to, when I was talking of this UPSC survey, if I want to do that, people are geographically spread across different districts, different blocks. So it will be very costly exercise for me. Okay. Standard errors of estimations can be high. So leave it. It's more statistical. Systematic. So what do we in systematic sampling is, we select the nth individual. Means after interval, we are selecting one individual. Say for example, there are 50 students in a class. I will select every fifth individual. It can either be a boy, it can be a girl, it can be anyone. So every fifth individual will be the part. That is a systematic sampling, where nth case after a random start is selected. So for example, I selected roll number 2. Then I will select 4, 6, 8 like that. So if surveying a sample consumers, for example, fifth consumer may be selected from your sample. So all of that. It's very simple to do. Then you have stratified. The population, it is divided into strata, and a random sample is taken from each subgroup. Okay. So you have a population which you divide into different strata. You divide it into gender, age, occupation, education, and from that you select individuals randomly. So suppose you selected individual based on their educational. Individuals who are graduated, post-graduated and PhDs. You can select individual from them. Or you just want to have individual from commerce department or from science department. You can do that. Okay. So you are stratifying the overall population. Stratifying means classifying into different segments. So it is specially used in cases where there is a great deal of variation within a population. So, okay. So here the main purpose is to ensure that each stratum is adequately represented. Okay. So if I want to understand the if I want to understand the perception of individuals towards UPSC examination, I cannot leave aside people who are residing in small cities. I cannot leave individuals who are who are not preparing as such. So I will have both perspectives into my scene. Okay. Next is you have cluster sampling. So you divide the whole population into small clusters. Like every district, it has certain blocks. Within blocks, you have gram panchayats. Simple things like that. Clearly getting how clusters are being made. Okay. A random sample is taken from these clusters. So from a block, you have different panchayats. From each panchayat, you can take samples to understand the phenomena. And there are 3 stages. First, we choose clusters. Then we number each cluster 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, A, B, C, D. Okay, we have a set of clusters. We number them and select a sample using random sampling. As simple as that. Okay. Then there is a multi-stage. It's not that important here. So in this, what we do normally is we use more of these methods together in multi-stage sampling. Okay, depending upon the feasibility of use. Non-probability sampling. Mostly used in qualitative studies, basically. Okay. So here, what all we need is the rationale to select the sample. We all need a clarification that why we are using a particular sample. That as simple as that. That we need to provide an explanation or a rationale that why these individuals are being selected for our sample. Different types. The first is quota sampling. Participants are chosen on basis of predetermined characteristics. Okay. So you have certain predetermined characteristics just like you have in stratified sampling. Okay. For example, you want to study perspective of individuals from scheduled castes who are giving UPSC examination, or scheduled tribes, or OBCs, or EWS. You have a predetermined characteristics, or you only want to study females from ST community. or you only want to study females from EWS community and their perspective towards the examination. So you have a predefined quota for that. Okay, as simple as that. But you need not to have, and it all depends upon the feasibility, that how much sample you are able to get into that. Okay. Snowball. So like snowball, why it is known as snowball? Because you see, you have seen a snowball. When it rolls down on a slope, it collects snow with it. The moment it rolls, it goes down slope, it will collect snow when it rotates. Okay. So what happens in snowballing is, you go to one individual and that individual will take you to another individual. So a chain will form. A chain will form from one to another to 3 to 4, 5, like that. And this kind of sampling is used basically for populations which are very hard to reach or hard to, approach. Especially people who are having mental illnesses. You cannot have access to them easily. People who are suffering from AIDS. People who are suffering from diseases which are very stigmatized in nature. All of that. Okay. So it becomes important in that cases. So, okay. So it's most applicable in small application populations. Then you have convenience sampling. So sample which is readily available to you based on your own convenience, such as your family members, your friends, and your colleagues. They are very readily available to you. So that's upon your convenience. Okay, that's simple in that case. Now we have purposive or judgmental. So particular persons or events are selected deliberately. Again, here the main thing is that you are taking your judgments into consideration, that what should be the case. Okay, at times what happens is certain samples are not available. So you do purposely that if I want to study aspirants and their perceptions, I will study you because it's very purposely that you are easily available to me to study. I can have a direct contact with you in that sense. So it is more purposive, where researcher includes cases or participants in the sample because they believe they warrant inclusion. Because okay, so it's more about the case that you wanted to be a part of the study. Okay, that's my purpose. That's the purpose in that sense. So these are the strengths and weakness of the methods. Convenience sampling, least expensive, least time consuming, most convenient. Judgment sampling, low cost, convenient, not time consuming, ideal for exploratory research design. Quota sampling, the strength is sample can be controlled for certain characteristics. Snowball can estimate rare characteristics, as I told you. Simple random, easily understood, results projectable. Systematic, it can increase your representativeness. Stratified, it includes all the subpopulations which might get missed out. Your cluster, easy to implement and cost effective. And these are the weakness of each of them. But let's delve deeper a bit more with this. So your random sampling is, sample group members are selected in a random manner. The advantage is highly effective if all subjects participate in data collection. You have more representative data. Disadvantage, high level of sampling error. Okay, when size sample is small in that. Stratified, representation of specific subgroup of strata. Again, you have classified the population. Disadvantage, complex to apply at all practical levels. Given the heterogeneity of sample size, it's very difficult to organize it. Systematic, again, nth member, time efficient, cost efficient. High sampling bias if periodicity exists. Multi-stage, conducted on several stages. High level of flexibility according to your choice. It is complex to conduct, impacted by limitations of cluster. We have cluster sampling, I've told you. Judgment sampling, based on certain characters or the judgment of researcher. Time efficient, but samples are not highly representative. Unscientific approach, personal bias is there. Quota sampling, sample group members are selected on basis of specific criteria. Cost effective, high level of reliability, but disadvantages, high level of subjectivity is there, difficult to estimate subjective error. or sampling error. Convenience sampling, again, obtaining participants conveniently as per your own choice, no requirements whatever. Useful in pilot studies. Pilot studies means studies we do before actually going into field. Basically a pre-trial study. Selection bias is there, highest level of sampling error, then is slow ball, as I told you. So the biggest advantage is possibility to recruit hidden population. Okay, but there is an over representation of a particular network. Okay, so these are the sampling method, very easy to understand and very easy to read. In a single reading, you will get to know. So now I am pretty much sure that if anything from this topic comes, you will not lose marks at all. Given the fact whatever I have taught you, stick to that. Nothing else, nothing more is required. Okay, just believe in that. Send this PDF via email. Okay, tell me your email, I'll send it.